In theory, in Pennsylvania, life means life. So how do I make that transition to even be prepared to go home if there's no such thing as going home as a concept? So I had to learn how to translate my prison living to society. This commissary was the grocery store. Every day you wake up, you have to believe you deserve to come home. And once you determine you deserve to come home, then you start working to be ready to come home.
Welcome to Come Home Ready. My name is Teresa Hodge, and we are excited today. We are in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I'm with one of my new best friends. I think I call everybody my best friend for the record, Donelle Drinks. He's somebody who I met earlier this year, and someone told me he's like Mr. Philadelphia. So, Donelle, welcome.
I humbly take that moniker. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, tell me a little bit about yourself. Come Home Ready is aired on Prison Tablets, and we have a unique opportunity to speak to men and women who are incarcerated and to offer them hope and encouragement. And the name of the show is Come Home Ready because what we know is people have to start getting ready,
Yes.
while they're sitting in prison because we want them to come home and stay home. So just talk to us a little bit about, you and your journey in prison, in and out of prison.
Like I said, thank you for having me. I went to prison at the age of 17. So I spent 27 and a half years in prison. I didn't come home until 2018. So my whole incarceration, I missed the whole technology transition. I predate the internet. So a lot of my getting prepared in prison was basically from books. And I had to find a way to make that translate into technology once I came home. The irony of it is I also had to get the right mindset to even say that I was coming home. Because unfortunately at the time I went incarcerated with a life sentence, which was originally was a death penalty. So in theory, in Pennsylvania, life means life. So how do I make that transition to even be prepared to go home if there's no such thing as going home as a concept?
That's a lot. And so help me understand something. You had a life sentence.
Yes.
And you served 27 years.
Yes.
What happened? What changed to take it from a life sentence to where 27 years later you were able to be released?
Yes. The Supreme Court ruled that children have a different capacity than adults. The brain ain't fully developed. And so in Supreme Court rulings, Millers versus Alabama and Montgomery versus Louisiana changed the landscape for juveniles that were sentenced to life in prison. So it didn't automatically ban it. It just said that mitigating factors had to be considered. So Philadelphia was the epicenter, had the most juveniles sentenced to life in prison around the world. Because America is the only place that sentenced their children to die in prison. So through resentencing, I was given the opportunity to have my mitigating factors taken into consideration. The beauty of that was not only did they take the mitigating factors prior to prison, but by me being resentenced, it also had to take into consideration what I was doing in prison. So I got a double bite at the apple to be considered of all my accomplishments.
2 good bites.
2 good bites.
Got it. So I want to just kind of, the 27 years, I have to be honest, in life, both of those 2 things together kind of messed me up a little bit. How did you remain hopeful?
That is an excellent question. And to be fully honest and transparent, for me, hope waned. I'm a religious man, spiritual. All those things wane, and you have moments of weakness. But for me, I had a level of arrogance and anger that fueled me, and that said my story don't end like this. So I would hold on to that, and then my hope would kick back in. My religion would kick back in, and then I would fight further. And then I would go through its ups and downs, its peaks and valleys. So I won't sit here and say I held on to hope every moment, but I held on to the belief that my story didn't end that way.
And when did you feel that way, that my story isn't going to end this way? How early on in that journey?
That's a good question. I can't pinpoint it to one particular moment. I just think overall, just my makeup of wanting better for me and not being able to identify or articulate what that better was in those moments, but I knew it wasn't this. It wasn't this. And so a lot of the elder men in there seen in me before what I seen in me what I didn't see at the time. Mm-hmm. And so they would always try to nudge me in the right direction. And we talking about getting ready. Mm-hmm. And it was a elder in there would always say, if you're already ready, don't have to get ready. And so they was telling me to be ready. And it's so funny because it wound up manifesting years later that I've already had schooling. I've already had programming. So when I had the opportunity to go before the judge to get resentenced, my transition started way before any Supreme Court ruling. I had already had decades of preparation.
Which is also interesting because so often people who have long sentences don't receive programming. Mm-hmm. And so was there a lot of programming available to you, or did you take initiative and you were reaching in and grabbing programming and pulling it in?
Unfortunately, no. There's not a lot of programming because the Department of Corrections, unfortunately, believe if you're going to be here, why waste money on getting you ready for society? So you have to take the onus on yourself to say no. In Pennsylvania, I believe it was after 95, through a lot of our advocating, they changed it slightly, and they start putting, I think, like 1% or 10% of long-termers in programming. Mm-hmm. So that really equated to like 1 or 2 people in programming. So you would have to take the initiative on yourself, and that was a lot of things we done on the compound. We had study tables. We had our own individual groups. So a lot of the education and the programming I got was self-initiated. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of the preparation and getting ready to come home will be. You have to take that motivation on your own.
Which is interesting because people who are going to be watching this, they're watching it on a prison tablet, which shows technology has changed for a lot of people who are sitting in prison. Yeah. So what would you say to someone who's sitting in prison with a prison tablet? Yeah. So they don't have to do a lot of that translation that you were talking about. They actually have the technology in their hands.
Well, first let me say this. I'll be remiss not to say I was in prison before the tablet.
Exactly.
I remember the tablets are coming. This is the big way we're getting these tablets. It's like, what is a tablet? So that just took me somewhere. Mm-hmm. But one of the things I would say to someone that's watching this on the tablet, control your content. Control your content. The tablet affords us opportunity for recreation and music and games, but there's nothing like learning as well. Control your content, and your tablet is yours, so you have the opportunity to do it in your cell. So if there's a little angst about not reading well, or you're a little nervous, it's not cool to do certain things, you can do it in the privacy of yourself. Control your content. That's what I would tell them.
So
it's your
what
tablet.
Thing that's not cool that you would tell somebody to do on the tablet?
Well, when I say not cool, I'm putting myself in someone that hasn't turned the corner 100% yet. Gotcha. You're still worried about what other people may see. Mm-hmm. It's more cooler to go lift weights. Mm-hmm. It's more cooler to play basketball. Mm-hmm. It's more cooler to just talk about LeBron James. Mm-hmm. A lot of times in environments, you have to define your cool. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying it's not cool to learn. If anything, that was the cool part for me, being able to learn what I didn't know. Knowing what you don't know is the best thing to know. Mm-hmm. So I will always encourage anybody to set your own path, control your content.
So let's talk about, today, if you had access to a tablet, do you feel like education and taking advantage of potentially getting a 4-year degree, would that classify as cool? That
would be the coolest thing in the world. One of the things that I know, like now that you could study on your tablet and get a degree, that takes out, see, when I was in school, I had to do it through the mill. I had to find a staff member to proxy my courses. Then I had to write them, and there's correspondence course, and I had to wait and see if I passed my test. And I didn't have no study opportunities. The book had pages missing. You have all this beauty of knowledge in college on your tablet. It's nothing cooler than that. It's nothing cooler than having a conversation with your loved one saying, listen, I am working towards my degree. Mm-hmm. You got nothing but time.
Yeah, so the thing is maximizing time, and for us, we're looking at all of the ways that we can maximize putting the right type of content on the tablets so that individuals can put together their formula, their building blocks, if you will, mm-hmm. of what's important to them, because not everybody in prison, want education.
Yes.
Not everybody in prison want to work in, a certain industry. So one of the things that we're trying to do is make sure that we have lots of good information on there. So as people are starting to figure out who they are and putting their formula together, they could do that. But let's talk a little bit about building blocks today. Like, what were some of the building blocks and like what was the formula that you put together for yourself? Because you said you went before the parole board. And when you went before the parole board, they took your good time or some of your good activities into consideration. What were some of those activities?
Well, and it's funny you said building block. I want to say tools. Mm-hmm. The tablet is your toolbox. Mm-hmm. And in it are different tools, the wrench, the hammer. And when you utilize them correctly, it's nothing that you couldn't do. So for me, I've always wanted to be a better person. I wanted to understand a lot of the trauma that I went through. I've always worked with anger. So for me, a lot of the content that I would read and absorb was a more humbling and peaceful approach to different things. As far as being prepared for society as a whole, I didn't understand finances. I went to prison as a child, an irresponsible child. I didn't know how to budget. So I had to learn how to translate my prison living to society. This commissary was the grocery store. My paycheck was my paycheck. Getting up in the morning, little things, I had to learn how to translate that to society and realize I've been here before. I know how to do this. So for me, it was always listening to other people that went down that path. Proximity. Let me hear someone that went through this. Let me watch you. Let me understand it. I don't have to stumble to know that there's a step right there. You've already done it. And that's what I think the tablets affords those on the inside. It affords you the opportunity to become proximate with success. Mm-hmm. Just like we can listen to a tablet and be at a concert. Mm-hmm. We could be at a lecture. Mm-hmm. We could be at a meditation session. We could be in a classroom. Utilize it to be proximate to who you want to be.
That's interesting because I say that the tablets are a window into the world. Mm. And so it gives us an opportunity. What I hear you saying is it gives you an opportunity to think about who do you want to be when you exit prison, and then start listening to and tapping into those channels on the tablet. What do you think about that?
I think you're spot on. I tell everybody, if you identify with a certain genre of music, I'm going to see that in your tablet. Mm-hmm. Country and Western, rap, R&B. So if you're talking about finances, I should see that in your tablet. If you're talking cooking, I should see that in your tablet. Control your content. Tap into, peek through that window of what you want to be and identify it and become proximate to it.
I like that. That's another reason why we bring people like you on, Donelle, and others, because we want people to see someone who they can relate to. See someone who had a life sentence or went to prison and maybe has 30 years or 40 years. And to know that, how did you say it, that this was not how my story ends.
My story doesn't end this way.
My story doesn't end this way. And that they start creating their story. And what I hear you saying is not only tap into who you want to be in the future. Get on this tablet and take advantage of every opportunity on the tablet, off the tablet, so that people can see and the correction system can see the change. Because when you went before a board, it was all of the ways, you didn't have a tablet at the time, but that you were tapping into whatever resources were available to you to be able to have a sentence reduction when the time came.
With the tablet, it's funny because I used to always say there's not an on and off switch with life. And I don't think that you can walk around aimlessly in prison and say, I'm going home and turn the light on and you're going to be who you're going to be. But the irony of it is, with a tablet now, you can turn the on and off switch and become proximate to who you want to be. And you can start developing that person now. My thing is, I always tell men and women that I talk to that are currently incarcerated, you are already who you are. It's just, are you going to be better at it? And a lot of times we have to understand what that means. You could be a good person. You could be an educated person. But are you going to be a better educated person? Or are you going to be a better person overall? And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of examples in that environment sometimes. Mm-hmm. And that's where the tablet comes in. Because now I don't have to look at you. I can look through this window. I love that. Mm-hmm. And see a whole plethora of opportunities and people that I want to be.
And there's an opportunity to, tap into anger management, mm-hmm. meditation, things that, you said that may not be perceived as cool, and, you don't have to raise your hand and say, I want to go to this programming and be identified by the rest of the folks on the compound. But you can tap into, because we know what we need. We know often what's missing. And so if it's on the tablet, there's a unique opportunity to have a one-on-one experience with something that, begins to fill a hole.
And that's the beauty of it. The tablet is for you. A lot of programs institutionally imposed are for them.
It's for the institution to check a box.
They check the box.
Okay.
And so I'm going to go through the hoops to check your box. But if you have that content on your tablet, you're checking your own box. And that's when you start taking ownership in your life. You're controlling your content. And I can control my content when I'm ready, when I'm working out, when I'm laying in the cell, when I'm walking around the day room, wherever. I'm controlling my content and I'm checking my own box. And that's when you're really making that transition for change.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about what are you working on today? Which is probably a lot. What I've noticed is a lot of busy people show up and they're not doing one thing. They're doing a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us, this is our form of giving back and staying connected and being proximate,
yes,
to the problem. So what are you working on?
Well, what hat am I wearing today? And that's just it. And you said it. I left prison with the commitment to not only be a better person, but to be an example for everyone else on the inside. We all know that when somebody does something wrong, it's a reason to keep everybody on the inside, mm-hmm. inside. Mm-hmm. So I always said I'm going to do something right to bring them home. Let me be your co-defendant. So right now I'm traveling the country, fighting for legislation to ban life without the possibility for parole for juveniles. But I'm working diligently in my own city, filling gaps. Because when I came home, I realized there were some gaps in reentry that weren't filled. And so me and a couple other guys that went through this process took it on ourselves, said we have to fill these gaps.
And what were some of the gaps that you saw that were...
Once again, we talk about box checking, we mm-hmm. talk about housing, we talk about employment, we talk about transportation. These are things that you tell people that they need, but why do they need them? How do they utilize them? How do they maintain them? You got programs that say, okay, I'm going to give you housing, but they don't tell you how to budget. They don't tell you what's affordable housing. They don't tell you this job is not going to maintain this housing. So for me, it was being able to identify and build an individual prescriptive reentry plan that was applicable to you and your lifestyle. Mm-hmm. If you know that you're going to have a job that you're going to work at night, you shouldn't live somewhere where on the daytime there's a lot of noise. Mm-hmm. Just common sense living that we didn't have the opportunity to be afforded when we were home. Financial literacy. People talk about that in a broader mm-hmm. sense. But did you realize how many people have never been shopping in the market? That don't know how to buy. We buy brand related. Mm-hmm. You know, my mother bought Jiffy, so I'm buying Jiffy. Well, 20 years ago, Jiffy didn't cost what Jiffy costs now. So now I have to take you to the market and teach you how to buy store brand tastes like peanut butter too. You know,
buy what you can afford.
Buy what you can afford. Little, but you don't know it because you get to the restaurant, it's like self-checkout. And now you have this angst of, what do I do now? And I've seen people stand there bewildered because there's nobody telling you what to do, or society is just assuming you know, and you're rushing and you're anxious, and now you're overwhelmed. You walk out and you leave all your food at the counter. So the gaps is just a cognitive understanding of reacclimating to society. And that's what I think personally, the connection with the discussion with the tablets, it allows you to start seeing and identifying what you need. And then my goal has always been to be that gap filler to hand you what you need. You already know what it is. Like, you can say to me, I want this, this, and this. And I'm going to say, well, this is where it's at. This is how you get it. And this is how you maintain it. And so that peer life support is what I like to say our organization provides.
Peer life support. So I'm hearing kind of a theme. And so our organization, we just recently got some grant funding to do digital navigation. For what you're talking about is that we know folks are coming home from prison. And in many cases, what they don't know is good luck going to a grocery store and getting someone to check out your groceries for you. You have to do it for yourself. Or the city has changed. Where do I go for X, my birth certificate? Where do I go for this? You know, how do I use an ATM? When they say tap at the register, what does tap mean? You know, we heard a story of somebody said the cashier told somebody, tap your card. So they tapped their card. And the lady kept saying, tap your card. So they kept tapping. And so they were getting into this crazy exchange. And he didn't know that, you know, there's a chip. You have to just lay it there. But he was following the instructions exactly like they were being given. But there's a transition period for many of us where the world shifted and the world is changing. Technology changes every 3 months. And for a lot of people, if you've been in prison 27 years, it's a lot of generation of technology shift. And so you need a concierge. You need, you called it a peer life support.
Yes.
I like that phrase.
The thing, what I've learned, and anybody, when you learn education, every environment has a language. If you go into the field of mechanics, you're going to hear technology. You're going to hear references that mechanics can speak their language. Plumbers speak a language, and technology speak language. What we forgot, society speaks a language. When you're coming and transitioning from home, there's a whole different language. Tap. I was tapping, but I didn't understand what you meant by that. So those little things in vocabulary development in such a thing as the navigation thing, that's a big deal. Like for me, when I came home to Philadelphia, regentrification has changed the city. There's blocks that are no longer blocks. Not a building there. There's a whole block missing. So if I remember I make a left on Teresa Street and Teresa Street is not there, where do I make that left at? So there are a lot of things that we have to be patient with, but we also have to understand that the small nuances of support prevents bigger things. I know someone that got on a bus and was ready to go back to prison because the bus was talking. The bus was talking to them, and they heard, and they think they hear a voice. They got off the bus, they panicked. And so they never made it to see their parole agent.
Such a sad story for the record.
Because there was so much angst. Yeah. So they were willing to dig their heels in and rather go, man, because they, in their mind, I could do prison. I can't do society.
Peer life support. Is that something we can work on, getting some of that knowledge and information put on tablets?
Sure. I would love to. One of the things that I've learned, you can study, and academia is good, but there's something that goes a long way with just experience. There's something that goes a long way with interaction, terminologies. I would love to grow out an opportunity for our men and women that are inside to be successful. And the thing is, I think that the tablet affords you the opportunity not to have to read a whole dissertation. It could be bubbled references. So yes, I look forward to that and building it out and allowing an opportunity for more cohesion. Because we also got to understand this, Teresa, that I know you know, we've had conversations, that everybody learn different and everybody at different levels. And so sometimes, unfortunately, a lot of industries use $50 words. And then I'm just a $5 reader. So give me something for $5 and I can understand it. Just give me a bubble and a reference. And when we're talking about across the country, we have to be culturally aware. Every culture is different. Every community is different. Every society is different. And working nationally, I had to realize that. But all our stories are the same. People want to be good. People want to succeed. People want to thrive. And the best way we can do that is making them proximate to information.
I love that. So, peer life support. You got a new partner. We're going to make that happen, okay?
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so that's happening, coming soon. What's next for you?
Next for me, I was able to parlay a lot of my relationships and my knowledge. And so I'm going into consulting.
Wonderful. Consulting doing what?
Well, connecting. Not outside of the reentry space. One of the things I was doing second chance hiring. And so I developed a nice Rolodex of people that are looking for men and women that are reading these tablets right now that are looking for employment. And so we understand sometimes your ability and your skill may not reach your credentials, but you're a qualified employer. Because a lot of people that come home are working with a passion and not only for the paycheck. And so we can develop a certification that says he knows his stuff. They're willing to give them that opportunity. So that consultant business, prison reform, you name it, I'm gonna run the gambit. But basically reentry. My whole goal is to make sure that the reentry process is smooth and successful. Reentry plans. But the best part of it is I am not limiting myself to those that are already home. But the touch point is let me touch you before you come home.
Absolutely.
And that way we've already can transition into it instead of starting it when you get home.
Absolutely. I love that. So now we're going to be partnering all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
All right. We're going to be busy next year.
Yes.
But after I take a little break, I want you to look into the camera and I want you to talk to the men and women who might have a life sentence. I mean, I don't even have words, of encouragement or inspiration, but you do. And so I really want you to talk to them directly. They may be sitting on their bunk. They may have this tablet, have earbuds in and walking the yard. Whatever they're doing, they need to hear from you on how do you stay either hopeful or just whatever the message you would have for someone. But I really want you to talk to someone who has a longer sentence and they don't see the end.
I'll start off by saying I was you. I had no I couldn't determine when I was going to come home. But one of the things I understood was I deserve to come home. You have to have the belief that you deserve to come home. Every day you wake up, you have to believe you deserve to come home. And once you determine you deserve to come home, then you start working to be ready to come home. And everything you do should be connected to you coming home. Your motivation is your family, your loved ones, but also it should be that you deserve to come home. Nobody else understands what you're going through but you. I was you. And that connection of knowing I deserve to come home, I should have been home. And that's not negating anything from your past. And that's one of the things I want to always tell someone. We are our worst critics. You understand your life, you understand your choices, you understand your decisions. But know you are so much more than your worst decision. You deserve to come home. Start working to come home. Everything you do should bring you closer to what you deserve. And that is to be home.
I appreciate that. And coming home and getting ready, that's cool, right?
That's definitely cool. It's nothing cooler. It's nothing cooler than it.
Absolutely. Coming home and being able to stay home. So if someone wants to get in contact with you, do you have a formal organization? I don't want to
Yes.
send folks to your email.
No, yes, my organization is G.R.O.W.N. It's an acronym for Gaining Respect Over Our Worst Nights. G.R.O.W.N, wearegrown.org is the web page. And it's
Is it We Are Grown?
no,
Or
the organization is G.R.O.W.N.
Grown.
G.R.O.W.N.
G-R-O-W-N.
G.R.O.W.N.
.org.
No, see, you're confusing me too.
Okay,
So,
sorry.
G.R.O.W.N is the organization.
Grown is the organization.
But the web page is wearegrown.org.
Got it.
You understand that part?
I got it. Wearegrown.org.
Yes, and the thing with our organization is for us by us. Both founders are formerly incarcerated. A lot of our facilitators are formerly incarcerated, as well as we work with victims as well as perpetrators of crime. But that's our acronym: Gaining Respect Over Our Worst Nights. Whatever your worst night was, whether it was incarceration, victimization, homelessness, molestation, whatever it was, our goal is to empower you and allow you to become a part of our community that is a support system, life support system, that will help you reach your best potential.
I love it. You guys heard it here. Donelle Drinks. We are so excited to have you and looking forward to the work that we're going to do together to get peer life support on the tablets.
I am looking forward to it, and I'm going to hold you to that.
You got it.
My girl.